You'd think that film studios would have a short fuse when actors refuse to do as they're told or simply turn up feeling obviously unenthusiastic. This is, after all, a performance game, where big bucks are showered on big talent in the interest of making big profit. If you were clearly working with sour ingredients, you would throw them out, as nobody likes a rotten egg. But sometimes studios and filmmakers have shown remarkable patience with their misbehaving actors. How many times have passionate situations on set boiled over into outright violence, for instance? Like when Lawrence Tierney and Quentin Tarantino came to blows without anyone getting sacked. It's just counted as a bit of a blip and everyone dusts themselves off and gets on with it. Not always, though. Sometimes actors do something so bad on set that the whole movie is changed to accommodate them, presumably because firing them would have just been too easy. In that case then, I am the office brawler, Ash from What Culture's new startup boxing division, and these are 10 movies that changed because of actors' bad behaviour. 10. Wesley Snipes' Blade Trinity behaviour boosted Ryan Reynolds' role. The story of Wesley Snipes' time on Blade Trinity will live long in infamy well after everyone has forgotten how much of a disappointing mess that movie was. Thanks to the testimony of co-star Patton Oswalt, Snipes was non-compliant throughout the production and his integration was barely helped by his insistence on staying in character for the entire shoot. Presumably, Snipes' method approach identified Blade as being rather casual about his work schedule too, since Oswalt revealed that his absence fundamentally changed the movie. In his words, a lot of the lines that Ryan Reynolds has were just a result of Wesley not being there. After it all came to a head between Snipes and Goya, the crowning act of defiance by the former that necessitated a pretty dumb change to the film in post-production saw him refusing to open his eyes for one scene and them having to be superimposed onto his eyelids incredibly badly. You've got to respect the dedication to the bullshittery right there. 9. Crispin Glover wouldn't read his lines in Charlie's Angels. Though he is an incredibly talented actor, Crispin Glover is largely known more for his apparent difficultness on movie sets than for his acting achievements. That's probably unfair because, in his words, all he did to get fired from Back to the Future 2 and replaced with a stand-in was ask a few questions nobody wanted him to ask, but mud sticks. Anyway, on top of questioning the ending of Back to the Future, Glover also pulled a Glover on Charlie's Angels when he decided that the script was so awful that he simply wouldn't participate in saying any of it. Rather than this aversion to the exposition-heavy nonsense he was being charged with saying costing him his job again, it just made for a huge change in his character. In the end, his creepy thin man, a name possibly reflective of the writing quality here, simply became a mute, which ironically is about the only interesting character detail for him in the entire film. 8. Val Kilmer's ego killed the island of Dr. Moreau. People claiming to know lots about film will often tell you that the biggest issue with the island of Dr. Moreau was Marlon Brando. But Brando's strange performance choices and characterization demands were only part of the story. And to his credit, he did later admit that he was just trying to make his experience less boring. More of an issue for the doomed movie, whose original director apparently turned to black magic to ensure its success, was that nobody ever said no to Val Kilmer. In a red-hot period of his career, and coming off the back of Batman Forever, Kilmer was the only other big fish brought in to ensure Richard Stanley's dream project got off the ground. Replacing Bruce Willis when he unexpectedly dropped out, Kilmer started bold, demanding his filming schedule was shortened. Then when production was halted because of a tragedy in Brando's life, he swapped his role entirely to an easier one. And then he was reportedly rude and abrasive and would sit on the floor and refuse to get up. Instead of firing him, the studio fired Stanley and handed the reins to veteran John Frankenheimer, who proved way too malleable to Brando's ridiculous suggestions to change the film. The results spoke for themselves, and it was all thanks to Val Kilmer acting up. 7. Channing Tatum's dancing changed a key "This Is the End" scene. Some of the Harry Potter cast have gone out of their way to put their most famous roles behind them by being consciously more edgy. In fact, Daniel Radcliffe has made something of an art of it. Emma Watson has done it a little, most notably in The Bling Ring, but the same year that film came out, she was also almost in a surprisingly dark movie that called for it to be pretty wholesome as part of the joke, since she'd be thrust into a boys' club cesspit, essentially. Surprisingly, when presented with the "This Is the End" script, she accepted it without issue, having legitimately read it. Unfortunately for her, so did Channing Tatum when presented with the opportunity to play a leather-clad dog. The two were supposed to share a scene around the point where Tatum's secret role was revealed, but Watson walked off set and refused to complete the scene because Tatum had apparently chosen to breakdance at her in his leather thong. The planned scene with them both never made it into the film. 6. Jamie Foxx walked off the Miami Vice set and the ending had to be scrapped. Quite whether you'd count this as bad behaviour per se is probably up for debate, given the circumstances. But had Jamie Foxx done what he was told, the end of 2006's Miami Vice would have definitely been different. That it might have also cost him his health or his life is also a key consideration. During the shoot, some sequences were filmed in the Dominican Republic, and one area was apparently so dangerous that it was deemed a no-go area by the local police. It didn't stop the filmmakers though, and they simply recruited local gang members to protect them. Somewhat unsurprisingly, the circumstances led to a police officer being shot, so Jamie Foxx walked off set and refused to film outside of the US. This wasn't exactly normal diva behaviour, but he had begun to pick up a reputation for that in the wake of his Oscar win, so it didn't help his image. It also led to Michael Mann having to rejig his plans to shoot the finale in Paraguay, and it was all shot in Miami instead, which sort of makes sense, what with the title and all. 5. Patrick Stewart roasted Star Trek Insurrection's script, and it changed. There are some things you'd probably pay attention to if you were working on a film script. Christian Bale bellowing insults at you and questioning your intellect would probably stink. So too would a withering put-down from Judi Dench or Maggie Smith, but ranking highest of all has to be the polite but devastating letter penned by Sir Patrick Stewart. That's what faced Star Trek writer Michael Piller, who was hired to write Insurrection, having already written for The Next Generation. Unfortunately for him, experience counted for little as his script wasn't up to Stewart's expectations, and the captain sent him a letter ripping it to pieces. Now, loosen your belt for this absolute spanking, as I quote, "It has no surprises, it has no scale, it has little humour, and what it has is cliched and tired. It has no romance, it is not sexy, it breaks no new ground, it underuses our cast, it has little fun, it is dull. I have taken detailed notes on the story, but really I feel that there is so little for us here to even start work on. I am very sorry my reactions are so negative, but they are so because my hopes to make this a superb film are so high." If it was anyone else, you'd count that as impertinence, but Piller took it as an invitation to rewrite the entire plot. Somehow, the dull nonsense that resulted was signed off on as good enough this time around. 4. Ben Affleck's fandom changed Gone Girl. Part of the whole acting thing is doing things you wouldn't normally do. Vin Diesel, for instance, is not a big tree, Daniel Day-Lewis was not a butcher, Tom Cruise is not a murderous assassin, probably. But for Ben Affleck, one requirement for his role in Gone Girl proved to be so much of a sticking point that his stubbornness shut down production for 4 days. And it was all down to a hat. The film called for Affleck's character to hide his identity in New York for a brief scene by wearing a Yankees cap. The only issue was that Affleck is a Red Sox fan and flatly refused, despite multiple attempts by David Fincher to convince him. In the end, because Affleck wouldn't do as he was told, Fincher had to change his script and Affleck got to wear a Mets hat instead. Someone should probably tell him that it is all make-believe. 3. Sam Worthington wanted to kill an owl in Clash of the Titans. You can say what you want about Sam Worthington, but he knows how to protect himself from making disastrous career choices. Oh, wait, actually, no, sorry, that is not entirely true, is it? It can't be, given his career trajectory after Avatar. Anyway, maybe it is still fair to say that he can identify potentially damaging career choices then, all the same, because he managed to get Clash of the Titans changed by being petulant and trying to injure a co-star that he didn't want to be upstaged by. That sounds psychotic until you realise that the co-star was a mechanical owl named Bubo. In the original, the goofy bird played a fairly key role, offering comic relief, but in the remake, he's relegated to a 15-second cameo that we are all very angry about. So what gives? Well, Worthington apparently hated Bubo so much, according to director Louis Leterrier, that he kept threatening it with physical violence and trying to damage it a little bit to make it unusable. In the end, his hooliganism paid off and the director agreed to cut the metallic owl. And the whole film was ruined because of it. 2. Faye Dunaway refused to shoot a new ending to The Temp. This one is slightly different, because Faye Dunaway's flat-out refusal to do as she was told actually came after the completion of the movie and sabotaged plans to change the ending to the director's new requirements. After years of being reportedly difficult to work with, Dunaway appeared in tepid thriller The Temp in 1993 opposite Lara Flynn Boyle and Timothy Hutton. It wasn't good, and she ended up winning a Razzie, so you can probably forgive her wanting to get it out of the way as quickly as possible. Unfortunately for director Tom Holland, that meant his change of heart on the original ending, which saw Flynn Boyle unmasked as the killer, to switch her character in as the real killer couldn't be done. According to her book, when the suggestion came up out of the realisation that the film didn't work as it had been shot, shot, Dunaway simply stopped taking the studio's calls until they agreed with her, and she remained a victim in the other new ending that they shot. So basically, digging your heels in can work. 1. Marlon Brando hated Apocalypse Now, so he sabotaged it. Marlon Brando is pretty much the poster boy for on-set misbehaviour thanks to a couple of notorious movies and his apparent reluctance to do anything that would in any way compromise Marlon's brand. Good that, isn't it? Anyway, on Apocalypse Now, Brando was very much only one ingredient in a big disastrous soup that should have never ended up being a finished film, let alone a great one, yet it remains so. He probably wasn't even the worst part of it all either, but such is the size of his mythology that it's what most people talk about. Brando couldn't memorise his lines, which was one thing, but he also notoriously turned up massively overweight, so Francis Ford Coppola had to dress him in black, bathe him in shadow, and shoot mostly just his face. He was essentially forced to hide his biggest draw. There's some debate over how much Brando was misbehaving and how much his reputation was unfairly attributed as such in hindsight, because his disruption of the shoot and refusal to stick to a schedule actually also led to him rewriting a good deal of the script. And it's not like it's a bad script or a bad film in the end, so maybe you take the rough with the smooth. And that's our list. Which of these picks is the most shocking? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash, and this has been What Culture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and be on the watch out for eldritch horrors emerging from the depths. Global warming is real, everyone. Thanks for watching.